Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm your writer.
Also, and Ian's background might flash, so epilepsy warning, I guess. I don't know. The lighting's weird. Today's going great.
I don't understand why.
Webcams are weird.
Look, Ian, Brandon spent like an entire Stormlight book trying to have somebody figure out lights. It's okay for you to not understand.
That light is easy to understand. This light, not so much.
Webcams are just like, yo, I'm just going to do this now. And you're just going to have to deal with that. Also joining us is Evgeni. How's it going?
Hi, I'm Argent, and I also don't have boring intros like Ian, and I also don't have exciting lights like Ian.
And also, apparently, in the inside of the fortress, lasting integrity is Marvin. How goes it?
Hello, I'm Paleo, and it looks pretty cool here, actually.
You're having so much fun with that.
So this is going to stay for the whole video. No. Just joking. Yeah, I'm Paleo. And it's wow. Fake. Ooh, I fell.
Acting, everyone. This is the content and production value you want. And I am Chaos. And what we're gonna do
is interrupt the segue.
See, this is why we got to do show and tell during the intro.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree. We tried something new. We tested it.
Yeah,
we're no longer trying new things. So, for our drink of choice today, we have a cocktail in a can. It is a whiskey sour with cherry bergamot. Bergamot. Okay, I have no idea what that is or how it tastes like, but I imagine I've tasted it so far. So that's fine.
And literally just a word I know is a word. I don't know anything else about it.
For our actual item show and tell, we have Stormlight. The Stormlight.
Oh yeah.
That came with the Way of Kings leatherbound.
Yeah, on our unboxing, we showed off all the face cards, and they are excellent. Like they're really nice cards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then playable too.
So I'm not gonna obviously go through all of them, but like there's Jello as a Joker, and he looks amazing, and this Veil also looks amazing.
Oh, those aren't even the Jokers. Those are just extra cards.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a special card. Yeah, that's right.
But I like how Sja-anat is a king in the playing cards. Like that's really great.
As she should be.
Yeah, as she should be, indeed.
Yeah.
It's like that makes sense.
I don't have a URL or a username off the top of my head, but the artist who did these has, I want to say, a Redbubble account. But it's one of those, sell prints type of things. And you can buy pretty much any one of these illustrations, except for I think maybe Jello and a couple of others. But you can buy those as prints in different sizes, and maybe there are stickers. I'm not sure. So
nice.
If you like the art, that's an amazing way to get at least some of them fairly cheaply. Like I imagine you can get a print for like $10 or whatever.
That's totally reasonable.
And they're so worth it.
They're really nice. You can check out our unboxing where we go through all the face cards. They're nice. But today, what we're going to talk about is, I guess we're doing quarter 2 Words of Brandon. We did Q1. Now it's Q2. And there have been a few events. So there was a Cosmere.es interview. Our friends over on the Spanish fan site, they got Brandon and got a few excellent Words of Brandon there. So always good to plug them. If you're a Spanish speaker, you go check those out. We'll talk about those wobs. There was another spoiler stream, so we got to talk about that. And then there was a Dusty Wheel interview where we were not going to talk about the Wheel of Time ones, but the Cosmere ones we will talk about. So that's what we will do. So I think we'll start with the Cosmere.es one. And note, these are going to be paraphrased a lot. And so that's okay. But there are some very exciting words of Brandon in this episode. We're going to have avatars, Selish Cognitive Realm. Stay tuned.
As usual, spoiler warning.
Oh, yes.
all Cosmere, including Realm of War and Shard.
Yeah.
Most likely not Cyberverse and
I don't think we included anything on that.
I only included one WAB, which is about the POV of one of the novellas.
Oh, yeah. That's not spoiler, I don't think.
No.
Cool.
So,
all right. So, Cosmere.es interview. Brandon said, "You will get done with Wax and Wane 4. You will know who Trell is. You will know what Trellium is. You will know what's been happening there. But it's not going to give you definitive Cosmere-wide large-scale changes. It is more going to be setting up and building for the big things that are coming next. So don't put too much pressure on the poor little Wax and Wane series. They really are about Wax, Wane, Steris, and Mraize, and kind of uncovering this stuff. You could consider it the build-up and prologue to the second large era of the Cosmere, if that makes sense. Which the second era of the Cosmere is basically going to be third era Mistborn, second era Stormlight. Nice! We're entering phase 2 of the Cosmere.
I mean, I would kind of argue that it's almost like a phase 3. Well, so like So we have kind of the early books, which are Elantris, Warbreaker, Era 1 to an extent, which are very standalone-y. Any kind of crossovers are extremely Easter egg level, maybe one per book type of thing, and it's usually Hoid.
Yeah.
And then the era we are currently in is the one where there are still mostly Easter eggy kind of crossovers, but they are a lot more rewarding to the reader who is versed in the wider Cosmere knowledge. And then Era 3 is going to be that on steroids. Era 3, but also Era 3, right? And then
phase 3 in Era 3.
I think phases is the best. Yeah.
And then phase 4 is going to be, the full the end games and the Infinity Wars, the full crossovers of all the
where
things.
Brandon will just stop caring and be like, well, you better read the other stuff.
Yeah. No, there's one WAB in all of this, I think, where he's like, well, in Mistborn Era 4, if you haven't read the other books, tough luck.
Yeah, I mean, that's very much like Infinity War Endgame. It's like, look, if you haven't seen this long sequence, tough crap. We're not catering to you at all. It's like, all right. I'm very excited to know Trell and Trellium and what's happening there. That's probably the main thing I want, in addition to closure for the characters. Because Era 2 is kind of more of a side story rather than what is now Era 3, which was originally his second Mistborn trilogy. So I imagine that's going to have some stuff happen because, just a little bit happened in Era 1. So Era 3 is probably going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah. I don't think it was in this one, but there's a separate WAB where he's like, Era 2 is very character focused. Era 3 is actually like proper big Cosmere.
More like Era 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably with more crossovers though, honestly.
Yeah. It's back to like being an epic fantasy rather than like the pulp fantasy of Era 2.
Yeah.
And I really like thinking of Era 2 as the prologue to the second phase of the Cosmere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of other Wax and Wane 4 news, later in the Dusty Wheel interview, he did say there are confirmed Steris POVs, and I'm very excited. And so Brandon was just like, I can confirm that because I've written them. I'm like, yeah, very exciting. Very exciting.
Oh, that reminds me. We are actually probably going to get Wax and Wane 4 reading at JordanCon.
Whoa.
That is a very high likelihood.
How did I not like think about that? Like, that's exciting.
He did mention that at some point in the Dusty Wheel interview.
Oh, nice.
Because they were talking about how like Matt from the Dusty Wheel and Brandon are both going to be at JordanCon, and Matt was asking him about his plans on what to do at Shardcast, but he's like, well, I'll just do my usual thing where I get 2 hours and I do a reading, I do a Q&A, I chat with people, and so the reading is probably going to be from the Lost Metal.
Oh, new Cosmere readings. Oh, so exciting. Oh, that's good stuff.
And maybe one more point regarding the Cosmere awareness. There also has been a warp that it will, or Wax and Rain 4 or Lost Metal will be more on the level of the more recent books. So it will have some more overt stuff like Rhythm of War probably, but it's not going to be like secret history level stuff where we are going to get, as he says here, like really Cosmere-wide stuff.
My mom was very confused about secret history. She's like, I read it, and I'm like, I don't really know what's happening at all. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Fair, yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Well, crap, I didn't go into WoP mode, so let's fix that. But at least I realize now, and not an hour and a half from now. So that's good.
Never happened.
Nope. It does make the production a lot easier on the videos, though. A lot easier. But that's okay.
So this next question, touched on how the plan is for the next novella between Rhythm of War and Book 5 is Horn Eater, and will be at the next Leatherbound Kickstarter. But ask Brennan about plans for a novella between Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, which at some point was going to be Lopen. I still might do the thing I've always wanted to do if I do the novella between 1 and 2. I might still do the Lopen mini-story about him being king, because he jokes about that all the time. He also mentions that now that he's given Lopen an arc in Dawn Shard, he doesn't know if he wants to do Lopen as that novella.
Also, that's not between 1 and 2, the time when he was a king.
No, it's not.
It's just not.
It's not.
Yeah.
And so now that I know it's not Lopen, I'm kind of searching through and being like, okay, who is this going to be? Very high on the list of options is Teft, but he needs to look to see if there's anything he can actually add to that arc now that Teft is dead. We know how his arc ends.
And his arc is good. You don't really... Like Oathbringer to Rhythm of War was such a nice transition of Teft's arc that I don't think you necessarily want a thing 1 or 2. I don't know.
And I feel like for the members of Bridge 4, in between Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, there's not too much you could even
Moash novella. Called it now.
Yeah, because Way of Kings and Words of Radiance do pick up immediately after each other.
Yeah.
Like they technically overlap on a single day, I think.
Yeah.
And he mentions not wanting to ruin Teft's arc. So that might drive me to go further afield to somebody who's much more of a smaller character, if that makes sense. We'll see what I end up doing. There are ideas I have, but none of them are really popping out to me right now.
Rushu prologue. That would be...
I would love that.
I feel like because between Way of Kings and Words of Radiance it's instantaneous, you kind of have to do what Edge Dancer did and be like somewhere totally different, right?
Yeah.
And not one of our main casts. So the Mosh one could be cool, but Rushu...
Maybe Bren could do something like where we have a new character in Words of Radiance or something, and he just shows a bit of what they were up to during Way of Kings or something like that is one option he could maybe do.
Cool.
Yeah, the kind of the history of is the route I was thinking of, but in my head it was the other way almost. It was a character that the novella would lead up to and maybe parallel with some of the Way of Kings events.
Oh, true.
For example, just off the top of my head, we can do like a Dabbid story.
And so I have the perfect suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
May Aladar. What's going on with May Aladar? Please.
Oh man, if you guys don't remember from if you're new to the fandom for Rhythm of War, there was a lot of talk in Oathbringer that like May Aladar just kept appearing in those preview chapters. That's been quite a meme. Yeah, I feel like retroactive novellas are quite difficult because then you've already seen where the character arcs go, so it's a lot easier to be like, okay, I'm gonna do a Risen novella, and so I have my plan rather than something like Teft. Like, you probably could do it, and Invisitor would be a great name for a novella. Honestly,
it would.
That would be really good. But I don't know. It could be very dicey, and so maybe choosing someone else that has not been explored. But at the same time, if you're going straight from Way of Kings and reading them all in chronological order, you don't want it to be like too weird,
You don't want to bounce too far back.
Yeah. So it is a bit tricky because that Way of Kings Words of Radiance transition is just so good when you're just reading through,
Huh. How about Teravengian?
That could be pretty good.
So here's my thinking,
That could be pretty good.
My thinking is the idea with, so if we are exploring this, well, let me go back. So the idea is you want to finish reading The Way of Kings, and then you want to find one of the kind of mysteries or cliffhangers or things that you want to know more about that Words of Radiance is not going to tell you about. And one of these things is, well, oh my god, Teravengian is actually a villain, or at least an antagonist, or at least somebody with questionable morals. Let's go into his head and just kind of gain a more informed understanding of the things that he's doing and why he's doing, and so on.
Sort of like what he's up to during Way of Kings. Is that what you're thinking?
During the Way of Kings, and maybe like even during early Words of Radiance.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue I have with that is that you couldn't do that novella without doing the reveal of like his intelligence changing every day.
That was such a
And,
good
like,
reveal in Words of Radiance,
is a good
and
reveal
that interlude's so good because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair.
It's so hard to choose a thing when you've already written 4 books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe like one of the High Princes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I would be in for a Sabarial novella.
Oh,
that sounds
be...
Varial
is great. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky one. Maybe we get Amaram backstory. Ooh, we really need that like a bit before that end of Oathbringers. It's like we need Stormlight 2.75 right there for Amaram.
Next question is less serious. And it asks about whether there are cats in Shinovar, because we know there are chicken and other earthly animals. And Brent says, so there were at least at one point cats in Shinovar. Whether cats are still there or not, you have to wait until Book 5 to discover. But cats did make the jump. If they exist, they didn't make it past the mountains very far. But you have to see.
That's one of the most gentle Raffos Brandon's given. It's like, well, you'll see. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. It's so hard. I have Ashen just associated with the lava and the destroyed Ashen that it's hard for me to reconcile. It's like, oh, it's supposed to be an Earth analog.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what Ashen's supposed to be. It's so bizarre.
It was an Earth analog.
Well, it was past tense. Yeah. Cool.
Hopefully, we don't go destroy our planet, turn it into a lava ball.
Let's destroy Roshar, then head back to Ashen. Book 6.
Well.
So the next question that Cosmere.es had for Bren was about Song of the Dead, which was formerly known as Death by Pizza. And Bren said that that one is still in revision, and we hope, or is hoping, that we'll have it someday. And he also mentioned the Reckoners novellas, which he has talked about before, and those are apparently finished and currently being recorded for audio. So it's one of those mainframe things, which is Bren's audio company, that they're doing audio originals first for those, and they apparently turned out really well. And then he also talks about the first Skyward novellas that he has mentioned before, and it's I'm just going to read it. And the first of the Skyward novellas that Chansey wrote is just spectacular. I really like it. If you guys like the Skyward books, it's from FM's viewpoint. It kind of takes a character that I had done very little with and does a lot more with her. I'm really excited for those to come out, have summer expansion to some of those worlds and settings and stories. We're working on getting those going. And towards those, he also has, Chansey has finished the second novella,
which is Read On.
The first. Read On.
So yeah, we have a few more updates since that interview.
Yeah, because this interview is in April, so it's been a bit.
Sunreach which is one of the Skyward novellas, is at 100% done on the first draft, so it's waiting on a revision from either Jancy or Brandon. Redawn is also 100% first draft. We have the name of the third one that comes from Jabberwocky's annual rights catalog.
Yep.
And it is called Evershore. And we don't really know anything about that one. So we know that Redawn is the name of the home world of Alanik and her people. So that's probably going to deal with that. We know that Sunreach is FM's, so that's the one that Brandon is talking about here. But we don't know anything about Evershore.
Maybe that's a Jorgen one, maybe? Like Jorgen, Alanik, FM, Alanik, Jorgen, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what Evershore means. Like, that's not a word we had, so I don't know. I'd like more Jorgen.
It's from somebody from Starside, maybe. Like,
oh yeah, that could be really cool. That could be cool. Yeah. That's true. That's true. Evershore does kind of sound it like it definitely gives Defending Elysium vibes. I don't know. And
the other thing we have is the name of one of the Reckoner's novellas is Lux. And that is all we know about.
Great.
Which, I mean, Lux sounds like the name of an epic. So
yeah, right, yeah. Well, and I guess all the names are after epics, so. Cool. Then we move on to the spoiler stream, which was at the beginning of June. And as you might imagine with Brandon's stream, Brandon likes talking, and I like listening to him talk. But we're not going to narrate everything that Brandon says here. But this first one, it was right at the beginning. I think I have to put an image embedded in this video, or maybe just part of that video, because Brandon's reaction to this question is amazing.
It truly is.
With the discovery of anti-investiture in Rhythm of War,
yes,
would the correct form of anti-investiture be usable to clear up the mess in the Cell Cognitive Realm? If so, would this completely destroy a splintered shard?
That would not be a good idea.
Why would that not be a good idea? This would not clear up the problem. The problem that's going on in the cognitive realm in Cell is that a bunch of investiture that should be in the spiritual realm has been packed into the cognitive realm instead through a very weird circumstance of events. If you were to introduce a bunch of anti-investiture of the right type there, you would just generate an explosion that would be a very bad thing. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Investiture can't be either, so it's actually changing forms. It's going from investiture into energy, which, does not leave the system. So the investiture would eventually make its way back around. You can't destroy anything in the Cosmere, just like you can't destroy anything in our universe, but you can make it change forms. So what's going on there is just this hope by a certain individual that what has happened there will prevent the power from becoming self-aware. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
I have an immediate question to this.
So yes.
Obviously what's happening here is if you were to do that, you were going to nuke the Selish Cognitive Realm.
Yeah.
But
it's not nice as it is, so.
One sentence that I didn't pay much attention to the first time around because I was too busy laughing at Brandon's expression.
Yeah, I know. You're so good.
Is the bit where he says, so the investiture would eventually make its way back around. You can't destroy anything in the Cosmere. So it made me wonder, if you were to do that, let's say you blow up all of the door.
Yeah, okay.
Would the door's investiture come back to the Selish Cognitive Realm? Or would it return to the spiritual where it's supposed to belong?
That's a very good question.
That is a good question. I think it would return to the cognitive realm because that's where it left from. And also, like, all of the magic systems on Cell, like, draw from the door and presumably once that investiture expended, it returns to the cognitive realm. Otherwise,
Oh, yeah, right. It'd have to.
Odium would
Yeah,
have murdered every person on that planet, because them doing magic is just slowly draining the door back to the spiritual realm where
okay.
he does not want.
Yeah. It'd have to regenerate. Yeah, so that if you're a little lost by what we're talking about, there's this idea, like, remember in Mistborn, the Well of Ascension regenerates. And so investiture, it eventually comes back. And so that's what Brandon's referring to there. Yeah, I think you're totally right, Ian. Like, I think it would have to go back to the cognitive realm, or else that, like, you could just drain all the door out into the physical or something. And that I don't think that's
time.
Yeah.
So there's probably a way to like re-anchor investiture. So pulling all of devotion and dominion into the cognitive realm is not just a matter of, taking the shards from the spiritual and dumping them in the cognitive. There's probably also a way to say, okay, this is the default location for that right now. The same way,
respawn point.
Yeah, there is
Yeah.
waypoint.
Yeah.
The same way that the investiture that is in the well returns to the well and not, some nebulous, inaccessible location.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, on First of the Sun, the Aviar use Patry's investiture theoretically.
Right.
And like that presumably returns to Patry. It doesn't go back to Bovidin. Like it stays like where it was.
Oh, we'll get to avatars. We'll get to avatars in this. I'm so glad Ian's here for this.
That is something that like would be interesting to ask Spren. Like, how does, like, what determines where investiture, where the respawn point is set? Because we also, like, why exactly is the Well of Ascension where it is? Is there something special about that location, or was it just randomly? There was randomly more investiture there, and it just accumulated there.
Well, because he's talked about like the spiritual humidity, and that there's like points where it like coalesces. So I feel like the well initially was a random place where that power would naturally coalesce. And
it's like watersheds, but for investiture based off of geography we can't define.
Yeah, but it is just interesting though, because perpendicularity, like, it puts all three realms, and and like presumably that, like, the allomancy, it doesn't flow into the well if it goes back into the spiritual realm, right? Like only the well's power regenerates, and that power regenerates at the Well of Ascension. It's like, wow, there's a lot of mechanics going on here that we do not know about here.
Because preservation turned the well into the key on the lock.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Like, preservation modified his perpendicularity to do extra things.
That's true. Yeah. That's fair. Wonder what Odium did to do this. Like, geez, that's...
I don't know. But
that said, I don't think the explosion would be that bad in the Selish Cognitive Realm, because already you have the infinite plasma that's going to rip you apart. But maybe, I mean, clearly people can get out of it somehow, right?
I object.
Okay.
Because, so I think that the current state of the Selish Cognitive Realm is akin to having a star there. And introducing, I mean, obviously it's not quite as deadly as like having a literal star, but introducing anti-investiture to blow it up would be akin to blowing up a star. And so you're comparing something that is extremely deadly versus another thing that is extremely deadly, but the second thing is like blown up out of proportion.
Yikes.
Yeah, the plasma storm is just bad weather for the cognitive realm on Cell. I'm curious to see how much of an effect that much investiture would have on the physical realm. The cognitive realm is not a separate place, really. It's just a different way of viewing the same reality.
It's a different dimension, sort of.
Yeah, it's not wholly removed. They're linked.
Well, yes, but also there is the thing that the physical realm is the one that dictates the appearance of the cognitive, if not always, then at least for the most part. And I'm reminded of the scene from Secret History where Kelsier could pick up objects in the cognitive that are obviously reflective of objects in the physical, and he could manipulate those objects, he could move them around.
Manifest.
And manifest, yeah. So like the little campfire that he carries on a stick. And they don't affect what happens in the physical. Now, if he had found a way to destroy these things,
yeah, that probably.
And also in Stormlight, in Shadesmar, when you manifest objects in the cognitive, then the objects in the physical are still fine.
Yeah.
So
again, supernova amount of
it probably isn't good.
Different scale of effects.
Yeah.
And if somebody were to use the door at that moment, like they
maybe you'd just be drawing the supernova into the physical. What could go wrong?
Yeah. In fact, something a little bit similar happened the first time Rayoden produced a working Aeon, didn't it? Like the way it was described was like
I think
the energy was like
building up in him. Yeah.
And so it was Aeon Ihi, I believe.
That was the fire one.
Yeah, because Aeondor hadn't been used for so long. Pressure had been building because Elantris, the city, and all of everything going on, is like the door got used to it. There being a gateway there, so now it's like there was a huge dam. Open a tiny hole in the dam. A lot of stuff came out.
I mean, what could go wrong? Just blow up the cognitive realm, and then you have the most powerful magic. It's like, I draw supernova power. I'm dead, but, I did kill all my enemies right here, and maybe the entire planet, but...
Okay.
Honestly, that is such an interesting, idea for, maybe the end of the Cosmere or whatever. Not the death of the Cosmere, but the ending time period of the Cosmere saga. Just, hey, let's go and mess up with the Selish Cognitive Realm and see what happens.
Or just even
sacrifice the planet.
Not just putting Aiden Elsium together, but putting him back together and then destroying his ass. It's that's a end of the Cosmere that I didn't quite think was possible. It probably isn't possible to get that much anti-investiture for that to really do that. But
yeah, probably.
Yeah. You need an infinite amount of anti-investiture.
Fun to think about, though.
Yeah.
So this next question, because we've been doing terrible about getting through these.
Yes.
Is from Avery Hicks, asking about if there's a canonical reason why Vasher and Vivenna changed their names to Zahel and Azure on Roshar. And Brennan goes in, it's touches on names are very important in fantasy literature, and names are tied to identity. This show Vasher has been many different people, but also there's a lot of groups behind the scenes in the Cosmere that want to control things. And Vasher is kind of famous because he's one of the 5 scholars. Doesn't really want to be going by a famous name.
Yeah.
He has a good point about, in Azure's case, Vivenna had been associated with the color blue in Warbreaker. Apparently, I don't really remember that.
It's been a while for me. I didn't quite remember a strong connection there, but sure. There were a lot of colors
so,
there.
That's supposed to help you remember. I genuinely don't remember this being a thing.
Put in the comments below whether that specific fact helped you realize that Azure was Vivenna, because I don't know about that one, but
I'm trying to remember whether Vivenna's version in Mythwalker had anything to do with blue, but I don't think she did either. So weird.
It's like the thing where Brandon was saying, I think it was during our interview or your interview with him, that the kind of the philosophy and the mindset of the Ghost Bloods was supposed to invoke survivorism in the whole
Oh,
hunter
yeah.
hunted mentality and stuff. I'm like, Brandon, I don't think anyone caught that. But
yeah, this is like subtext that Brandon's like digging in real deep of like, oh yeah, that was supposed. Like later, he's like, oh, why are there 3 moons? It's like because I wanted to look like evoke 3 shards, so I wanted to just put some 3s in there. I'm like, oh, okay, Brandon. I mean, that's better than this one, I would say. But-
Cosmere fans are great at picking up a lot of things. Nobody is perfect. Sometimes things you think are super obvious, people don't pick up on.
Yeah.
Oh, we also get felt lore in this.
Yes, which I was just and then you get people like Felt who are not famous and just don't care. So it's like, oh, I moved to Roshar. I'm not important, so I'm still going to use my name.
About those cops.
It's like moving. Yeah, it's like moving from Nebraska to Texas. Like nobody really cares.
Good to know. We got
like
some
that.
felt lore, and he's not a secret agent. All right, cool.
let's move on then.
Yep.
Our next couple of questions come from Roshara.
Well, it's just the next question. It's one question.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Okay, yeah. But whatever. Roshura? Roshara. Next question comes from Roshara, who hates people who mispronounce your name. The Aviar that we see in Sixth of the Dusk were all fruit eaters. They all have to eat the fruit that the grubs, that's the power-granting grubs, live in. However, Mraize's Aviar seem a lot more like a predator than a herbivore. And Brandon excitedly says, it is! Roshara follows up with, did his species become extinct, or is it a unique Aviar, like Sack?
Right.
And Brandon says, neither. But yes, it is a carnivore. I will confirm that, which is not confirming much. You guys already knew that. But that is indeed what is going on here. And I believe what this is getting at was a theory that I was not familiar with, which is not shocking because I'm not exactly up to date on all things.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that the reason this Aviar is an Aviar is because it is consuming
other
Aviar and the grubs that they have consumed. So,
which is a very interesting way of going with that, like the Aviar symbiosis. I was like, all right. Now humans just need to eat those Aviar. Problem solved.
Well, we know that human biology is not compatible with
with
the grubs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
like, maybe theoretically there is something that would allow, like, the grubs to, like, go through a few different species and then they change or they get metabolized or whatever, and then they become compatible with humans, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I do find it mildly amusing that New York Times bestselling author Brandon Sanderson forgot the word carnivorous, which I feel like that I learned in early elementary school. I feel like that's a relatively...
Brandon talks good with words and stuff. He's signing things. He's just going off the cuff. Like this is why he has drafts, because like first draft, I don't care. Carnivoristic, that's what we're doing. We're capitalizing things however I feel they should be capitalized.
I mean, it sounds cool.
It does.
But
So Jack Milson was wondering how many awakening commands there are, and whether there is a finite number or an finite but very large number, or potentially an infinite number, and whether you can awaken with sign language, to which Bren answered that yes, you can awaken with sign language. And he would say that there are an infinite number, would be his guess at least. It's either finite but very, very large, or infinite, but they're gonna fall into groups as things tend to do in the Cosmere, you would say. And for one, the sign language one is what we've known this before, that basically your native language is generally what you use for your commands. So if you use the sign language as a native language, sort of, you get to awaken with it.
That's just interesting, given like they talk about the tones and the hues, and given tones, That is interesting, I think.
It is
but-
interesting in that way, that you don't have to verbalize it. Really,
Yeah.
you just have to express it somehow.
Yeah.
Like probably because it shapes the intent or something like that. Like because you have
Great
to put
intent
behind
command.
something.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. Fantastic.
I disagree bigly with this.
Bigly.
I don't. Yes. I don't think the command is going to shape the intent.
No, but you need something to put intent behind this. What I meant, like.
Yes, so this might be a very huge tangent that we don't want to get into.
We don't. We have so many wobs to go through.
Because
We're on
intent
page
and
6.
command. That's fine. Because intent and command is always a huge tangent, but
Yeah.
so you always need intent to do Cosmere magic. You don't always need a command, but I think the command often makes, if not always, makes the kind of external manifestation or expression of the intent easier. So like the same way you need to be like 8th or 9th or 10th heightening or whatever it is to awaken without verbalizing the command. You can, I imagine, do that in a lot of other magics where the command helps a lot, but it's not mandatory.
It's not strictly necessary. Also, can I just say that a great title for a Cosmere textbook in Silverlight is Intent and Command, a Huge Tangent. that would be an excellent textbook title. Silverlight scholars, get on that.
I was going to say fan artists get on that, but okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And regarding the infinite or like number of commands, I think it makes a lot of sense that there would be an infinite number because it's just words, like sentences that you can form, and you can hypothetically form any sentence you would like. It's just like Brent said, that a lot of them will just do the same thing, essentially.
And I was thinking, so Vasher's like fetch keys, he could have just as easily said retrieve keys, right?
I don't think that's true though.
I don't think that's true because it's like if you look at the patterns, like they use very specific like ways of arranging words. So it's
in that language.
In that language, yes.
So what I'm trying to get at is Brandon's, yes, you can have an infinite or a virtually infinite number of commands, but they fall within the same groups.
Yeah.
Or they will. And so you can have an ostensibly infinite number of expressing the same, like, fetching, retrieving, returning, grabbing intent. There are keys there. I want the keys to be here. But the actual command that you use to express that intent is going to depend on how you think of that, what language you use, whether you use a language, I guess.
Okay, so you're not saying like Vasher in that situation could have used retrieve keys.
Correct.
In that alternate scenario, somebody with a different language. Okay.
A different awakener.
Huh. Let's move on. We can talk about this a while.
I sense a can of worms.
Yeah.
You could say there are equivalence classes of commands and then
Okay. Well, we'll shelve that.
Yeah.
Jack Kimball asks, could Sja-anat heal a deadeye by changing them? Brandon, heal? That's gonna depend on your definition of heal. But there are definitely some that would call what would occur healing. They would be different from the way they'd been before. Yeah, that checks out. That checks out. Makes a lot of sense.
I do love this. So to me, this reads an implication that Sja-anat can restore deadeyes to some functional state. They will be different from their deadeyes version and also from the version they were before they became deadeyes.
Yeah.
And so that's where is this healing.
Yeah. They're not the same Spren anymore.
But I do find it interesting that she can restore them to like a functional state.
Yeah.
Because we haven't seen anyone be able to do that. Except kind of for Adolin.
Yeah. And like, I'd be curious if at that point, because presumably they're going to figure out a way to fix the deadeyes.
Yeah.
the writing is on the wall.
Yeah, agreed.
What happens if Sja-anat does this and then they fix deadeyes on that Spren?
That'd probably depend on the specifics of how deadeyes are properly healed.
Yeah.
And how much botany shrimp's involved. I don't know. You know, there's a lot we don't know there.
This next question is from Fly on the Wall,
Whoa.
who asks, is Hoid afraid of the beyond? Brendan? Yeah. Let's say yes.
Oh,
Makes sense if you've lived that long.
You probably don't want to die.
it could be that, yeah.
But like not necessarily like that he's lived so long because he's afraid of dying, but like it's like he's really used to being here. Anything new is I don't know about that. I'm
gonna stay here. Yeah.
I don't think it's like he's terrified of the beyond. It's just like
I'd rather not.
yeah.
I feel like it's just kind of the standard human fear of death type of thing.
Yeah.
Except
Hoid just knows more about
the mechanics.
what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. Like he's aware of the beyond, so he gets to be afraid a little more than everyone else because like he knows there is something there that you
Well,
go to.
the beyond doesn't need to necessarily be something. It's just leaving.
Yeah,
the
yeah, no,
cosmos.
but
yeah.
Yeah.
There's some sort of mechanism where you fundamentally
gone.
leave the Cosmere.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's terrifying.
in that case, our next question comes from Stuart Eliasson, who asks if a planet was orbiting a black hole, would time be distorted in the cognitive realm in that area in some way? And Brandon says, yes, good question. And in fact, if you could get enough investiture, it will do the same thing.
Yeah. So we already knew the investiture part. He's talked about that over like the last year, but it's kind of interesting that the cognitive realm would be warped, but like it has an interesting relationship with the physical, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. It is like just another way of viewing the same space. So like it makes total sense. Because there's
It
still
would
a black
be-
hole there.
Interesting to know whether it would be immediate. Like, let's say a black hole formed there, like from one moment to the next. Would you immediately notice in the cognitive realm, or would it take some time? Like, how?
Is there a speed of light delay in the cognitive realm, dude?
Probably. What I find interesting is that you have this almost opposite. Well, would it be opposite? Let me work through the physics of this. So the cognitive realm of a given planet. So if black holes affect the space-time in the cognitive realm in the area around them, that implies that any mass is going to do that.
Yes,
Mhm.
true.
Because that's how it works. And so a planet will warp space-time in its own cognitive realm,
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
which seems fine.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I feel like the people thinking about things probably shape it much more, than like
Probably,
gravitational effects in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's very interesting to think about how that would actually look.
Would people have to know that there's a black hole there in order for it to affect the time in the cognitive?
No, I don't think so. But it's
Yeah,
interesting that
yeah,
you have these kind of not contradicting, but these two different effects that both warp, that both shape the shape of a given subastral, right? You have the actual purely physical, objective, this is how the universe works in the physical realm, or this is how the universe looks in the physical realm, and you have the more subjective, abstract, this is how people think of the physical realm around them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's not conscious thought that affects the cognitive realm. It's the like
Perception.
perception. Just
Yeah,
like
right.
the unconscious, this is how like reality is, that has an impact.
Yeah, so if you're... Yeah. I was just like thinking, it's like, well, if you perceive that a black hole's warping that, like...
That will probably just like add on to the effect.
Yeah,
further,
probably, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get back to whether it would be instantaneous. And that question reminded me of another question where somebody asked what would happen in the cognitive realm if, let's say, there's an island in the middle of the ocean and there are people on the island, and therefore the island has a reflection in the cognitive realm, and then the people die, and so nobody else knows about this island. What would happen in the cognitive? And I believe Brandon's answer was that the surrounding area in the cognitive would just essentially creep over, like devour, like the island would diminish and shrink and disappear over time. It wouldn't be instantaneous.
Well, right, because probably like the sand and the trees, it knows that it is an island as well, right? Things like that. So it would probably need to be a slow process.
Yeah. And in reverse, Brennan has said, like, once space travel becomes more of a thing, like once people start studying the other planets in the Rosharan system, is like those are going to start being reflected more so than they are currently.
Yeah.
And that's just going to stretch things.
Wow.
But luckily, most of space is empty, so it's not going to expand distances between planets.
I can't wait.
Too much.
I can't wait. We found a way to make general relativity more complicated. It's like, wow, fun. If you are a physicist,
we're sorry.
I don't know, call me or something. Because I don't know what's going on here.
And then you add that the cognitive realm is apparently just a plane rather than like 3D space in a way.
Yeah.
How does gravity even work in something like that? Like, well, what if we just sweep this under the rug and say it's magic and stuff? It can.
And then we have places like lasting integrity where gravity is like, whatever.
Yeah, that's some weird perception mumbo jumbo right there. Wow. Huh.
Yep.
Well, neat.
Okay, the next question is also from Stuart Eliason, and he wanted to know whether the strange refractive properties of invested light are related to the backwards shadows in the cognitive realm, and like as Axis the Collector has in the physical realm, even, to which Bren said yes.
So first thing, and I know this happened later where Brandon said, you have to be careful with asking things like questions that are related to, because the answer is usually yes.
Yes. They're both in the Cosmere. Yes, they're related.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's that much to dig into with that, because it could be a tenuous connection, but if Brandon's just like, yes, that is kind of interesting.
In the interest of just being all on the same page and informed about what this is asking,
yeah, right.
When Navani is experimenting with light, with different types of light in Rhythm of War, one of the experiments she does is the famous prism experiment, where if you shine light through a prism, it splits into a rainbow. We've all seen, if not done the experiment, we've seen what that looks like. And so the magical lights of Roshar, Stormlight, Void Light, Power Light, Life Light, do the same thing, except their rainbows don't look like ours. So Stormlight, for example, splits into a rainbow with a wider blue band, and Life Light splits into a rainbow with a wider green band, and Void Light splits into one with a massive purple band that dwarfs all others, which is the Stormlight and Life Light are not described as massive bands, so there's something interesting going on there.
That is true,
The hybrid lights, I'll get back to that one because there's an interesting thought on that, Eric.
Okay.
The hybrid lights split into rainbows where, let's say, so Tower Light has the blue and the green being bigger.
It splits into two separate.
It splits into two rainbows, yes, correct.
Right.
One that is essentially the Stormlight rainbow and one that is the Life Light.
Yeah, because the illumination splits into its individual lights.
Which, if you haven't done physics. Like that is not how light works
No.
in our universe at all.
None of
Magic.
None of
It's
this
magic.
is possible. You can't make a beam of light, regardless of what color it is, split into something that has a wider band of something.
Spiritual mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, that is, or cognitive mumbo jumbo. Who knows? But probably spiritual.
I mean, why not?
Investiture mumbo jumbo.
Why don't we have why not both?
And so before I go back to the question, so I don't forget, Eric, the thing with Void Light having a massive purple band, somebody explained that, and I don't know if there's like going to be a realmatic reason for it, but I find it interesting that the kind of thematic reason for it could be, well, odium is the void that consumes all else. And so the purple is consuming the other lights, essentially.
Wow, there's so much going on here. I don't know if we're ever going to get answers to these things. I mean, I do think we will eventually get something for why there's backwards shadows and stuff like that. That's something. I don't know what that something is, but it's something there. I don't know.
But yeah, so if Stuart, if you are a listener of the podcast, I at least would be interested in knowing why you thought there might be a connection between these things, because I can't see one.
Yeah,
but I'm interested, right? So.
Yeah, because
It's because it's
what is related to.
It's supposed to do with
this
light.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds like somebody who has a theory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Post your theory below, Stuart.
Pro tip, if you're asking Brandon questions like this, add the words in any meaningful way.
That's true. That is yes.
Or be more targeted. Like if you do have a theory, maybe work it in somehow.
Cool. So Colby Bradshaw asks, could a Spren bond another Spren? And Brandon says, theoretically possible. Probably not a direction I'm ever going to go in the books for inception/recursive sort of weirdness reasons, but theoretically possible.
I can see
Which
that.
is interesting because a while ago he was asked if a Spren could pick up a shard, and Brandon said that's not really how it works. That's like, can an electrical charge gain an electrical charge? Which no. It's so the fact that Spren could bond other Spren is interesting.
All you need is Ishar to pull you into the physical realm, and then there you go, problem solved. And together with that Spren bond, then you can survive in the physical or something.
Because really, there would be no benefit.
I mean, you would theoretically gain the powers of another. You like gain access to surges that are traditionally coming from a different type of Spren, but
it does get weird because, like, does it do anything for the radiant of that bonded? If assuming the Spren is already bonded, that right now, if it's a radiant Spren that's bonded to a Spren, and if that Spren were to bond another Spren, does it have any effect on that first bond, for instance? So, like, it does get weird.
That's probably the recursive sort of weird.
Yeah.
Because it's like by default, like if it's just two Spren bonding each other, it's like Spren bond physical realm people to get closer to the physical realm. Bonding another cognitive realm being doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Huh. Neat.
Let's move on.
This next question from Nick Mancuso dovetails quite nicely into a conversation we were having earlier. Do world hoppers take time to adjust to the different gravity of a new world? How about in the cognitive realm? And ultimately, it depends on how fast you're getting from point A to point B. Because by walking, it takes months, so you'll gradually adjust. But if you go by FTL in the physical realm or instantaneously, you'll notice the sudden change. That does mean that gravity in the cognitive realm does change based on what planet's subastral you're in.
That makes sense.
It does beg the question just how large the sort of empty space between the planets is in the cognitive realm, because you'd assume that all across one planet the gravity would stay constant, even in the cognitive realm. And then you go to another planet and it would, as Brandon says, it apparently gradually changes to the other planet's constant gravity. So over which apparently it's taking you long to accommodate for that change. So yeah, how large is that empty space that you travel across?
Weeks or months of travel.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's a situation where let's say you were going between. Let's map the big worlds, right? So you have Scadrial, Cell, Roshar, Naltis. And I wonder if it's a situation where obviously the subastrals around each world are just directly mimicking what that world's gravity is. And then I wonder if it's like an expanding field. So let's say we take Scadrial with its 1.0 Cosmere standard and Roshar with its 0.7 Cosmere standard. And so in an area around them in Shadesmar, in the cognitive, it is 1 and it is 0.7. And then as you are traversing, let's say from Scadrial to Roshar, it slowly, the gravity slowly decays until it gets to 0.85 in the middle between them.
Yeah, no, yeah. That's exactly what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah.
Though it would probably be interesting because probably that interplanetary space in the cognitive realm, like, that would be true if you're just directly going between those subastrals. But like, what if you have to like walk by another subastral? Like, there's
so
like, it gets weird.
Linear as well. So
I think it's a collective average, right?
Yeah.
So if you have Cell, which is like the third point in the triangle, then you're gonna have Cells. Do we know that it's 1.1, or is that just my headcanon?
I don't think we know their gravity standard.
But it's
we know
1.3.
size. It's 1.
Okay, sure, but it's
was it
higher.
1.3 or 1.5? I thought it was 1.3.
It's larger than
It's big.
It's the biggest one, right? And then you're gonna have that like kind of bump the average a little higher. If you are close enough to it's like gravity in space, right? Except it doesn't go all the way down to nearly zero. It like there's probably a base like Cosmere minimum, or it might it
might default to Cosmere standard.
Yeah, so the gravity in the cognitive realm away from planets might be what the Cosmere standard is. And so the same way that we think of microgravity or outer space as having zero gravity in our world, even though there's like a tiny bit, maybe that's kind of the baseline in the Cosmere. And so Scadrial just happens to match that, but other planets don't necessarily.
I would like that because that would be a nice, easy, measurable way of doing that.
Yeah.
And
you could calculate
then you have Cosmere standard, not like Yolan standard, which is currently how we suspect that number.
And why it was at Cosmere standard? Because Ada and Alcium wanted it that way. It's like, okay, cool.
we introduced the SI units of the cosmic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Planetary.
And like, it would make sense that if Cosmere standard was based off of Yolan or whatever, that yes, Ada and Alcium would have. Depends on whether or not we think Ada and Alcium made the 3 realms.
Oh, let's move on to the next one.
Never mind.
So our next question comes from Vodid, who asks, about whether if you have caffeine, you can store kind of the additional wakefulness you get from caffeine in a bronze mind, which Brandon says that, yeah, you probably can do that. And his explanation is not very clear, but my understanding of it is that as you are storing that additional wakefulness, you are going kind of below the baseline. So you're essentially having the caffeine crash first, and then that's what grants you the ability to store. But what is more interesting in this, this is neat, but not very interesting. What is more interesting here is Adam commenting on all of this, and Brandon using that to kind of go on and talk about how a Mistborn cyberpunk would be a very cool idea. And then because you can have like metallurgic wetware, which is a concept he finds very fun. No promises on that. But also, if he were to write another trilogy in Scadrial, then that would bring the total number of Mistborn books to 16, which
would be strongly appealing for Brandon.
But and the way he's been talking about the cyberpunk era, he really wants to write the trilogy.
Yeah, I just might not have time. That's interesting that he's saying, though, it's like you can replicate a lot of things with once they figure out how to change types of investiture and whatnot, then suddenly you've got some wacky things going on. So yeah, I bet.
Yeah, but like it'd be cool to see like this cyberpunk trilogy like being not smaller is not the right word, but like similar in scope to Era 2, where it's setting up like the final age of the Cosmere, really.
I do think that could be good. To like do a thing where like you're doing Dragonsteel and like a cyberpunky Mistborn thing and then set up Era 4, like that would be cool. But when are we gonna have time to do that? When are Cell sequels? When is Nightblood the book? Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just excited we're getting Lost Metal, you know?
Finally.
So the next question comes from Yunseo Cheng, who wants to know that looking at Elemency, you've mentioned, Brendan has mentioned that over time the power dilutes and each ability becomes less powerful. Does the same effect happen in Feruchemi as well? How would Feruchemi become less pure or diluted? Other than the pharynx appearing, which is more an effect of them mixing with mistings. And Brendan says that basically, Feruchemi will not be or is not as much as affected as elements in this regard, and you might not be as efficient anymore in storing, or like you don't get necessarily as much out as you're storing. Is what a bit of a decay there. But apart from that, he says that for narrative reasons, he just wanted Elemency to be a little weaker because it makes the stories more interesting. And yeah, at this point on Scadrial, it's weakened about as much as it's going to, because by this point, people are having children that they are more powerful because of certain mixing. And he's not saying it's going up again, like to Final Empire levels, but he's saying that they have hit an equilibrium on Scadrial for the most part, or at least in the Elendil Basin.
Well, rip Era 3 if there's lots of Southern Scadrial stuff. But there's an interesting part where he talks about like when you store Feruchemi and you tap it out, it's not 1-to-1.
Yeah,
I thought we knew that. Didn't we know that? Like,
no,
it was very slight?
Like from what we knew, like storing, like you get out what you put in if you're tapping normal. It's where you're like trying to be like twice as strong.
Yeah, then there's a decay.
An efficiency loss.
Yeah.
But I think we knew that there was at least a little bit of decay.
Like a very
not
slight.
For like we didn't know it for the
allergic.
Yeah. Must be very slight.
Yeah.
Like a very, very small effect there.
Yeah. It only probably comes into effect like if you are, super not compounding, but like if you are burning your entire, burning is also the wrong word. God damn it. If you are If you are expending your entire metal mind all at once, like rapidly,
Yeah.
then maybe you can feel a difference. But also, if you are going through that much power all at once, the human brain is just probably not going to be able to notice, like, oh, I put in 10,000 units of thing in my metal mind, and I only got 9,800 of them.
Yeah.
The 200 drop is significant, but are you going to notice it?
Yeah, so it's like, oh, like I store like 100% of my speed for an hour, and like you can get that 100% of that speed for an hour. You do it like condense that to half an hour, you get less. 15 minutes, you get even less. So it's like the more you try to pull at once, the more is going to be lost. And I can see like the weakening of Feruchemi, like just exacerbating.
I would agree with that for sure. Yeah, that would be even more.
Not as much, maybe not as noticeably, but like it is a thing.
Yeah. So this next one, Miss Silver asks, did anyone actually try to assassinate Wit in the Way of Kings or Words of Radiance? And Brandon says yes, which is not surprising considering he annoys a lot of people. So
Yes.
that is not terribly surprising.
I want that to be the novella between
that'd be good.
Way of Kings and Words of Radiance.
A high prince trying to, or like hiring someone to try and assassinate Wit or something.
Someone hired Liz to do it. That'd be fun
Any
to
other
have
list
her.
stuff would be good.
Mhm.
Maybe Chana.
And
That's
just
just
like completely failing and not understanding why.
That would be great. That would be great.
It's like all the stories about Rasputin, how they tried to kill him like 50 times and like he just survived and we don't know why.
Yeah. Oh boy,
And
Ian, this
now-
next one.
Oh, I
I
think
still object to Brandon's use of Avatar.
No,
in this
I think it makes
situation.
more sense with this. I think it makes more sense.
It makes
Okay.
more sense. It's still not what an Avatar is, in my opinion.
Okay. Let's get it.
Alex M asks, what's the difference between Avatar and Splinter? And Brendan says, yes, these are weird terms I'm using. A sliver is a person. Notice he said sliver, not splinter.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, Brandon, that word is not the word you think it is.
Yeah.
But at least he
does correct
assigned
it.
the words accurately.
Yeah.
This is what a sliver is. A sliver is a person who has held the power of a shard and then let go of it. A briefly held time holding the infinite power of a shard, but no longer does. So what does that do? That changes your soul and leaves markers on it. It's a real physiological thing. An avatar is a shard manifesting a semi-autonomous piece of themselves that is still connected to who they are. An avatar, for instance, of autonomy, depending on how autonomy creates an avatar, might know, might not know, but they are still an aspect. They are still part of autonomy. And when you get down to it, a part of them knows that, and it's almost a god role-playing, but in a way that's only a shard or a lowercase g god in the Cosmere can do. A splinter is a piece of shard that is fully autonomous, where an avatar is not. So something that is splintered does not consider of itself and would not be considered by definitions an actual piece of the shard and has free will. So once it has free will or could develop free will, because some similars haven't gotten there yet, but it is fully cut off from the direct control and self-identity of the shard, then it is called a splinter.
So
I love this breakdown of
this
the
is
three
this
things.
is very useful.
Yeah.
Now we can actually write an Avatar article on the wiki.
Yes.
So we didn't have anything other than rampant speculation.
And I feel like this definition of avatar is consistent with how I described avatars at some point in some episode. I don't know.
Yeah,
which one it
no.
is,
This
because
makes
there's
a lot of
them.
sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I described it to like it's like a foot of a shard where it's like it's off doing its own thing. Because we were talking about, would a shard know if an avatar exists? And the answer is always yes.
Yeah. And so it's connected. So it's like identity mechanics, right? Not
Yes.
identity politics, identity mechanics. Right? Where like they know it's still connected with that greater whole.
Mhm.
Whereas the
Mhm.
splinter, it's a distinct chunk separated from that.
Yeah. And so like Honor Spren, they are still part of Honor, but they are not literally part of Honor.
Honor, if Honor was alive, Honor doesn't get to use that investiture anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is not a part of their self as a shard any longer.
But
It's sort of like
they are part of one being.
Yeah.
Because everything is part of a shard. Theoretically.
Yeah.
it's sort of like the humans on schedule do contain some preservation and ruin, but they are not part of preservation and ruin. And as much like they are still their own being. They're obviously not splinters, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a threshold for Splinter, right?
Yeah.
That's a little
You
weird.
probably have to be wholly investiture to be a splinter. Otherwise,
right.
you're
Exactly.
a person.
Yeah,
Or
right,
a
right.
humanoid.
Yeah.
But I also just find the wording that Brennan here uses quite ironic, that autonomy has semi-autonomous.
That's funny. That is funny. That's true. But I'm glad he's talking about autonomy. He knows that we know some things, which is very useful. But I am glad to have definitions. We knew the sliver definition. I don't think we knew that it's a real physiological thing, which is kind of interesting, but like sort of, but
We sort of knew it because he's described it too as like if you blow up a balloon and then let out the air, it's like you can tell that on the balloon.
Yeah.
So you have to see that in a person's soul, I guess.
Yeah. But that's nice. I really like this. I am glad this is answered. But still, I guess plenty of different ways to make avatars.
This is I am very personally interested in avatars, splinters, shards, sliver, like all of the S words of the Cosmere.
And A.
And many of the A words. And so I've been thinking about this one a lot because my previous theory that there is an older word of Brandon for was that avatars are kind of like smaller versions of the shard plus vessel combination. So a shard by itself, a shard of Adenalcium, this is where terminology really is insufficient. A shard as one of the 16 pieces of Adenalcium is a chunk of investiture with intent, right? A big chunk of investiture. And then a person can go and pick up that shard and become a vessel for the shard, and the vessel plus shard are also now known as shard, which is annoying.
Yes.
But now you have this combination where the person's realmatic aspects, so physical, cognitive, spiritual, are either completely fused with the shards or nearly so. And I think there's a little bit of room for freedom there because a vessel can exert some small measure of control or influence over the shard, especially in kind of the early days of their ascension. And so my previous theory was that an avatar is the same process happening on a much smaller scale. So where in the shard example, you have a shard of Adenalcium, in the avatar scenario, you would have a splinter, a piece of a shard. And then instead of the vessel, the human or the person fully fusing with the shard, you would have somebody who kind of ascends to a splinter, but there's not enough power there to vaporize their body and send them into this cosmic awareness. They're just like, they merge, and they merge on a much deeper level than a Surge Binder and their Spren, for example, would. So it's a much more thorough type of bond. But
that's not how this is anymore.
Yeah.
And
I
so
do think that's
I think
it has
there's
merit as
still
a
room for that.
Yeah, it's like one method of creating an avatar, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, because like I feel like Trell might be such an avatar.
Trell is that worker, and he's on schedule, and then we're like, "Hey, what's up?"
So
It could be.
Yeah.
no, all of this leads to my Trell theory. So I do think that Trell was born as just a human on on Teldane.
Yep.
And so when we see him in the White Sand graphic novel, I think this is just a human. There's nothing special going on right now. And then at some point in the future, this human, along with some other humans from Teldane, migrate to classical era Scadrial. And I think they're still just humans at this point. And these humans who are originally from Teldane spread some cultural knowledge. Maybe that cultural knowledge has been like tainted through generations or whatever. And so the original Trellism has some similarities to, like thematic similarities to Teldane and its system with the binary stars and the long day and the long night and things like that. And at some point, either during this or after this, I think Autonomy, for whatever reason, chooses Trell to be her avatar. And realmatically, what that means is I think Autonomy shows up and just pumps Trell full of investiture.
Still connected to Autonomy. But
Still connected to Autonomy, yep. And so I think there is enough of the original Trell there that this new entity, this new avatar, can act mostly independently. So like Bavadin doesn't need to like manually control them like a mannequin, the same way that Ruin in Secret History was controlling like puppets of himself.
that would be an advantage.
Yeah. But if Bavadin decides that either I need this investiture because I'm about to fight, Mercy, or B, I need this mostly independent avatar to do something very specific for me, Bavadin can go and like take control and like do exactly what she wants. And so I think for most of classical Scadrial, Trell was left alone to just like do whatever. And now that we are ramping up the Cosmere story, Bavadin has gone back and is like, okay, I am going to make an active use of this avatar that I've had here for a long time.
Some of that's plausible. Like I somewhat agree. Yeah, somewhat agree.
I think the using a human is sort of like, I guess like as I see it, in Patchy's case, it's probably that the piece of autonomous investiture just developed some form of sentience or sapience on its own, and Autonomy just said, okay, I'll take this and make this my avatar now. And in the other case, because that takes a long time, Autonomy was like, okay, I want an avatar for whatever reason. I'll take this human and I need a mind to control investiture, so I just infuse this human with a lot of investiture and still have control over them.
Why is it a random grass?
And I don't know.
I don't like this theory anymore. I don't think I ever actually liked it to begin with. But like the fact avatars do not have free will according to this. So it's like making a human into an avatar is really skeevy on the part of a shard.
Maybe the Trell needed to agree though.
It's just like it's messed up.
I think there would be humans.
It wasn't.
I think there would be humans who would say yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, but it does not feel right in any way to me.
Well, I mean, I don't think autonomy is particularly nice.
I think this touches on a very critical distinction between right and correct.
It's definitely not morally good.
But like this idea bothers me like on a philosophical level. Whereas like I just don't want that in the Cosmere. That is like screwed up. Like
it would sort of explain why we don't, or like so far we only know about Autonomy's avatars. Like we don't know of any other shards avatars, and maybe that is like because other vessels or shards decide, okay, that is not okay to do that.
And Bobbin's
so,
like, I don't care.
yeah,
Because I can see the argument with Bobbin that like I want things so that I can have my fingers in many more pies, as many pies as I want, really, and it'll still be connected to me. But my nexus of power, I as Bobbin, don't need to personally be there. I can see that being very useful. How much like free will they have and how much connection that is to autonomy depends.
Yeah. And just like another like mortal being holding the shard, like it's just like it's on a separate note, like that's just too close to what a vessel is. Like I just like I get Argent's point, like it's a nice bit of parallelism, but I think it undercuts like what vessels are.
I can't wait for at the end of Lost Metal and we go to it's just a craftsman working on a building and he has glowing red eyes and he's like, I am Trell. It's like, what? What is going on? Oh, it's so weird.
Trell, the craftsman, was saved by Kenshin or something like, right?
That's right. Yes, that's true.
So maybe it's sort of
not saved. His
building.
His workers were.
Okay. Because I could see it getting twisted in a sort of like weird savior story or whatever, like something like that. That is that's how it turns into a rich man, or like he turns into a religious figure, or something like that. But I don't know.
I mean, this is so weird that there's a craftsman.
Yeah.
That specific name. That's the part I don't understand. How's that related?
Yeah.
I could see some of that play into effect, right? So you are, I think he's a foreman, not a craftsman, but like, you are supervising your workers who are building a thing, and then the thing collapses, and then comes this. They don't see sand mastery as magic, but to somebody who doesn't have sand mastery, it would still feel mysterious, I think. And so here comes this person whose craft you've never liked. Like there's a cultural fear or dislike of sand mastery in general. And so he now uses his power to save your people and also give you a days off. That's also a thing that happens. And I can see Trell develop interest, reverence towards the Sandmasters, and then as Taldane maybe figures more things out about Sand Mastery, their like the connection between Sand Mastery and autonomy can become a thing that people are aware of. And so that can then tie Trell with autonomy, and he's like, well, why am I revering these Sandmasters when I can go to the source and like this is my god now? Let's leave avatars and splinters and slivers behind for a little bit.
For like 2 wobs.
And talk about this. So it's a very, very long wob.
Very long.
We are only going to cover a little bit of, because a lot of the other stuff is stuff we either know about or we can talk about in other ones.
Yeah.
But the question says, along the lines of biochromatic breath being akin to a person's soul, how would a shard blade react to somebody who does not have any breath? Would it cut them like an inanimate object? And the bit that is relevant here is Brandon saying no. Remember, one of the things with breath is I consider breath to be a part of somebody's soul, but it's the extra part that the Cosmere has that the non-Cosmere does not have. I don't know how far I want to lean into this, but there is definitely a part of me that thinks that Dryads, people who have given up their breath on Nelthis, are just like people from our world. That's what they are. And if we went to the Cosmere, we would all be Drabs. Even on planets that aren't Nelthis, where you can't take part of that and give it away and things like that, people are still invested. They are invested generally more than here.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure if this contradicts a previous, like an old word of Brandon? Because I feel like there was a
Been
thing
a lot
where
of drab words of Brandon.
yeah, I think there was one where he said the drabs are below our level, like because they have a more like negative outlook on life, and they're grumpy, and like the world seems dull to them.
I know. I'm pretty sure there's one that like a Nulthian with a breath is slightly above, more invested than other people, and a Nulthian drab is slightly below a normally invested Cosmere human.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, that's what he's saying here as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he also says that you don't really need to worry about like the regular sort of diseases.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not going to get smallpox or the bubonic plague in the Cosmere.
Because that investiture just gives you resistance to disease a bit.
Yeah. Which also ties into like an old WoB where he was explaining why Rosharans don't get sick a lot, and it's because there's so much like
Mhm.
There's a lot of investiture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that helps.
And
Yes.
I think, is it in this one where he also mentions that like the common cold outbreak right now in the Pure Lake is not as big of a deal as it would be in like if a foreign
Yes, right.
pathogen was introduced here on Earth. So yeah.
Yeah, like he's mentioned like it's happened before, like it runs rampant and then it dies off.
Yeah.
And we don't need to worry about that bringing things across planet, which probably is for the best.
Yeah.
I think we've had enough of diseases.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if I want a Brandon story deeply tied to disease. Maybe in a decade. Maybe in a decade. Maybe not right now.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
It's a little too soon.
yeah.
No, but so this point of like innate investiture making people like giving people effects, right? Is an interesting one because we see this with Risen and her Dawn Shard, right? Where colors become more vibrant to her, and we see this with the Returned, and just like anyone with a lot of breaths, right?
Yeah.
Where they become immune to natural diseases.
That is an excellent point. That makes total sense that I did not consider until this exact moment.
I think he's kind of he said that regarding like how you have more breaths and you get closer to the heightening, and it's kind of a sliding scale until you reach that heightening, and that's your ability. Yeah, so like immune to disease. Yeah, that'd be exactly that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
God.
Yeah. Oh,
You just rocked my world.
Oh, that did not take much.
Well, like because it is so obvious.
And it's very elegant.
yeah.
It is very elegant. And I just completely wasn't even a thought in my mind. But, like,
It's very intuitive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know that it's easy to like look at me on this podcast and be like, oh, this guy's here for his devilishly good looks. But I also have some ideas.
Yeah. No, that's why.
So we've been talking a lot about diseases in the Cosmere, and a question related to this is from Lotus. If one was world hopping to Nalthis, what type of customs would they have to go through? Which Brendan laughs at first, and then Nalthis customs, there'll be some tariffs to pay depending on what's going on. It is kind of not that different from what you would imagine. What I've read about in sort of Renaissance times, like pay your fees and things like that. But then he goes on about how for the reasons he's mentioned before in the previous WoP, diseases are not, or like quarantines are not something you have to worry about much. But dangerous items, what sort of dangerous items would you be talking about, right? He does think they try to prevent people with breath from leaving the planet, particularly lots of them. Getting off, he would say, is a little more tricky because they do not want the breath bleed of investiture leaving their planet. But I think, or Brandon thinks, you will find some notable examples of it happening, so they are not impossible to dodge those customs. And I mean, we have at least 2 instances of presumably a lot of breath leaving the planet, so well, 3 technically if you count Nightblood. So
Or Hoid.
Oh, Shashar, yeah. Hoid as well. Shashara
Hoid.
was on a lot
And
of
whatever the
places.
hell the 5 scholars were doing.
Yeah, exactly. A
Well,
lot of
I don't know
cases,
if
basically.
when the 5 scholars left, customs existed. I feel like that
That is-
could have been a
that
time
could
where
be.
that like
Okay,
there,
could
there
be.
was more freer travel, and then due to this 5 scholar discovery, they were worried. I'm very interested with this breath bleed of investiture. Like that's new.
It is.
You know.
Well, I think you might be reading into the terminology there. They just don't want breath leaving the planet. Because if it leaves the planet, like they don't have access to it.
So you're saying
like,
I shouldn't go into a long conversation about like how the breath regenerates? Would it go back to Nalthus? I guess it just go back to the spiritual realm. But are you saying we don't need to do a 20-minute long dive into that?
I don't think there's anything actually interesting there. It's just they don't want breaths to leave the planet. They want them to stay in circulation on Nalthus.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. But what if I make it a thing? What if I make it a thing like the Lord Ruler's kids? Or the weapon. Or the weapon. Killed Aiden Alcium.
Oh, the weapon.
just one of those things that I just
shrapnel.
Just went with Dawn Shards. And I just keep asking questions just about it. But yeah, no, this is probably not that interesting. Neat. Cool.
They're much more standard, those customs, than I imagined them.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine controlling a perpendicularity for trade, especially because Brandon said, actually, in the WoB that where we got Nalthian customs, he was like, Nalthus is a great place to visit. They have customs and everything. But like being able to control that economy and
True.
pay him in Stormlight or something, I'm like, okay, I'm into that.
That is an interesting thought. What do they pay? Because they can't pay them in Stormlight now, because you can't get Stormlight off the planet.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
recent development.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, that would be a huge revolution on Nalthus, I think, if you had like, if Returned could, because Returned can stay alive through using Stormlight. So if they had a constant source of Stormlight, that whole dynamic would change.
Yeah, but
I mean, it
also,
depends on whether Helandrian is part of that or is aware of those customs.
Yeah, it
part of
hugely depends on who controls the customs.
I almost feel like Hallandren might, because like it's under what, like the perpendicularities like in the ground and the seeping out made the tears of Edgley. Am I
Nearby.
it's something like that?
Something like that.
Something like the pool is leaking, and that's what makes the jungle possible.
So yeah, but it's probably just goods. It's like, oh, you want to trade goods? Like this is how much goods are worth, and so you pay some amount, or
Here's
like
some
gold
canned
or
beans.
something. Yeah, right. Sure. There you go.
It could be like,
You can't open it, but there you go.
how aware was Rashek of their trade in the pits of Hathin? Like, how was it more a thing the Ventures ran, and like he didn't really know it was an underground thing?
I
or?
doubt the Ventures did it for 1,000 years.
I
imagine the Lord Ruler would be familiar with
Probably.
some of that.
And I feel like if the Ventures were running it, Ellen would know something about interplanetary trade.
Yeah.
We didn't know about the Atium.
Well, no one knew about the Atium.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess even like the head of House Venture wouldn't. Yeah.
What? No, no. The head of House Venture would.
Didn't know about the Atium being funneled to the homeland.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That part. Yeah.
That's
For sure,
super secret.
That part's super secret. I feel like the Lord Ruler probably would take an interest, but probably wouldn't care too much. Maybe.
Yeah. Because
That would
we've
be my
known,
feel.
like, he knew about other planets, he just didn't care.
And he wouldn't know that the well could, and like the pits are a perpendicularity. Like he would have knowledge of that.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So he would have to. So
yeah, he would probably like, okay, like this needs some sort of regulation, but beyond that, like he didn't really care. Probably make sure like don't want gunpowder coming on world.
Yeah. Maybe there would be Final Empire tariffs there.
But I would not be surprised as far as Nalthis is concerned if endowment would somehow directly be involved there. Like she said, okay, do something there.
Yeah, see, that's why the breath bleed. It's like, is endowment meddling, right? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I mean, I think endowment can be involved without that being a huge thing.
She also
like
just like wants
what if it's
her
a thing, though?
Investment to stay on her planet because she isn't big into interference. Right? Or am I? If she was one in the letters who said, like, we made an oath to keep separate. So.
Oh, okay, sure.
That's possible,
and then like the people running it have the vested interest in just the breath itself. And the economic value of the breath. Yeah, okay, fine, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to just be shipping all of your golds to other planets. Like we need some of this to stay. We want this to stay here. We want to be rich.
Neat. Well, so we've been already recording for 2 hours and we are 11 pages through our 26-page document. And honestly, we've been trying to get the good ones here. We this is us trying to go fast. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to do Who's That Cosmere Character. This is coming out in July. And we will split it for another episode, but I think what we'll do is the next episode will be out just a week later, and then we will go back to bi-weekly. Just so we don't like have an entire month of just WoBs. Like I don't think that's a good idea. So it'll be slightly faster. So you get the WoBs more next to each other. And then we can skip the JordanCon week, which is also very appealing.
Yeah. We'll do back-to-back WoBs and then JordanCon weekend and then something else, hopefully, that we haven't recorded yet.
Yeah.
And then maybe JordanCon episode, but we'll see.
Yeah, that will probably be the plan. So, all right, let's go on over to Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Mraize.
Hoid in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw. All right, welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game show where you send in 5 clues and a character to WTCC@17shard.com, and these guys have a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. And Ian is here. We do eventually want an Ian versus Roshar duel, because Roshar has been on 2 episodes and she's 3 out of 4 on her Who's That Cosmere character. So she's solid.
Could be big.
My win percentage is not that great.
Yeah.
It's just sheer numbers because I'm on almost every episode.
Almost every, yeah, indeed.
It's also unfair because Roshar was the only Coppermine editor on that last episode that she won. So
that's true. And I think the last episode was the first episode I wasn't on. I think straight up. No, that was one of those. No, there was the Syl interlude one last summer.
Yeah.
So okay, that's not unheard of. This first one is sent in by Rhythm Wraith, which is an excellent handle, I think. And so clue number 1: this character commits a crime on screen.
Dalinar.
It is not Dalinar. Which one? Which crime? So many. Is it a Lethe crime? Or is it like just like a moral crime?
I'm gonna guess Sja-anat.
It's not
like
Sja-anat.
the theft of the fake soulcaster.
Oh yeah. And all those murders.
I thought you were going for the murders, but
one of the 3.
But
Murder is generally bad.
He does have flashbacks.
We just need to phone nails.
Sentient.
Like, so,
Okay, so,
what
yeah.
defines a crime? What is a
The
crime?
law.
But which law?
I'm gonna guess Wayne because he steals a lot of things.
I think he trades.
He trades.
It's not
Really?
Wayne though.
Legally,
Yes, he takes the crimes.
just
all.
leaves
Yeah.
stuff behind.
Yeah.
Doesn't he break into the university? Though?
Yep,
So
that guy
that's not.
He does a
probably
lot of
the
messed
legal-
up stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. If only Mraize was still, a lawyer. Get Wayne.
I mean, she's a constable. She could arrest him if she wanted to.
Yeah, that's true. She'd have plenty of evidence. Clue 2. This character is from a mountainous area.
Rushik.
This is not Roshar. I like that, though.
Is it Sazed?
It's not Sazed. These are great guesses. I like this.
Going to complete a Tindwell.
Not Tindwell.
She probably.
Let's get all the thirst people.
Yeah. Clue 3. This character is a guard.
Oof.
This is debatable on whether or not she'd be considered a guard, but I do have an argument. Is it Liss?
It's not Liss.
Okay.
What's his
This
name?
is Chana. Chana was
Did he commit a crime?
Well, like, Yasna hired her to watch Aesidon. So,
what is a guard?
Yeah, to guard her family
Oh.
against Aesidon.
Oh, I thought you were going with how Liz, Chana, and Chana is known as the guard.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the joke I was
No.
making. That's the
Yeah,
joke
yeah,
I was
yeah,
making. Yeah.
Yeah, not the
We-
joke
we-
I was making.
We don't know that Liz is Chana at all. That's just a popular theory. I did read a theory about how Shallan's mom might be Chana, though.
A guard.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to have to go with the description. I know
That's
the
fine.
name starts with a P. It's the guy that Vivenna takes with her to Titalia, the
Not Pavlov.
Palin or something like
Yeah,
that.
Parlin? Yeah,
Like,
no, it's not Parlin.
Palin. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Nice.
I wasn't even sure if he ever committed a crime, but
Yeah, I
he
don't know.
comes
He
from
seemed
Idris, so
he seemed kind of straight
kinda
shooting, let's say.
yeah.
If there's ever a movie of that, make Parlin an interesting character, because he was not.
Please. Well,
He wore a silly hat, though.
hmm
I'm
That
gonna,
is a crime.
Maybe in Hallandren.
I'm gonna go with a wild guess
Okay.
and go for the sibling.
It's not the sibling from a mountainous area. That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
There you go. Clue 4. This character is uncomfortable with a particular use of investiture.
Is it? I want to say his name is Captain Zoo, or it starts with a Z. It's in Emperor's
It is.
Soul.
It is Zoo.
Okay.
It is Zoo. You're correct. It is Zoo. Yes. Thank you, Evgeni. Yes, it is Zoo. And clue 5 was this character is from Cell. Nice. I gotta reread Emperor's Soul. It's been a while.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. It's short too, which is nice.
Yep.
All right. The next one is sent in by Traell. Oh man, the characters listed first. That's so Danger City on these emails. This is like, whew. Then the character is nope. All right. Clue 1. This character is dark-skinned.
Kenton.
Bayon.
Wait, who did you say, Evgeni?
I said Kenton.
It's not Kenton. Is he dark-skinned?
Yes.
He looks very
half-
white in the.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yes, but also he's half Darksider, so
Yeah. Okay.
Bayon.
It's not Bayon. Yeah, it's just maybe the graphic novels make Kenton look very white. Not exactly biracial.
John Akron.
What?
He's one from the Darksiders, one of the professors or whatever.
John Akron.
They,
Oh, sorry. I just
Akron.
the accent got me this time. No, it's not John Akron. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clue 2. This character is infatuated with the woman he works with.
Cinder.
It's not How many Darksiders can you all guess? If only Grace was here, she'd be like, Taldane, let's go. She was going to be on this episode, but Discord was freaking out on her.
I'm so bad with names.
It's okay.
I spent all my...
Dark-skinned, infatuated with a female coworker.
Yeah.
Is it works with or works for?
Works with is the clue is written.
Okay, and I won't go. I'm still gonna go with him, the guy who we have the interlude from, who witnesses Ash destroying stuff.
Baxel?
Baxel, right. So good at name.
It is Baxel. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is Baxel. Yeah, I thought that clue 2 was there. I was probably going to switch clue 3 and 4 because clue 3 was this character has come in contact with one of the heralds, which kind of makes it very helpful. So I was going to put clue 4 first with this character is very attached to his limbs. And clue 5 was this character is an Emuli thief.
That's a good final clue.
It's a good final clue, yeah. Yeah. But the infatuated, like that's a clue that's like, what? But also, like, if you think about it, totally makes sense. So that's good.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, we will see you all next week for the rest of these WOBs. And so you can find us in the meantime on 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. You can join us in Discord, links below. You can find Words of Brandon on Arcanum. That link's always below. You can always find it. And, you can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, SoundCloud. You subscribe on YouTube. Hit the like button. I think I said something to comment, but, if you comment, the algorithm will recommend videos more. So that's your job. And hit that bell, I guess, but I don't know. People don't say that anymore, on the YouTubers, right? Smash that bell. The sub box has been good now. I haven't had any issues for a long time of a person I'm subscribed to and it didn't appear in my sub box.
I think we've moved away from the, hit the like button, bell button, whatever, and we've moved more towards a thing where YouTubers just display like an animation.
A little thing, yeah. I don't have that though, so we're gonna say it.
We're old school.
We're stretching this episode out. It's 2 parts. Stretch it out. Yeah, and you can leave us a review on iTunes. You can support us on Patreon. Our new tiers are out at the time this is out, so you can go check that out if you want. Yeah, cool. Well, we'll see you next week. And then we'll be back on our regular schedule after that. Cool. See you all next time.
Bye.
Bye, yo.
Bye.
Ta.